This is how we ride. This is how we do.
Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are filming from the beautiful, sunny, clear blue skies. I got some houses. I got some pools. I got a frog on a ledge over here. Look at this. I got the three amigos over here. We're here for the Duel in the Desert. And we had a lot of things come out in relation to sprint car racing here recently. And we also had a kind of a response from the promotional ship group here in the Duel in the Desert, the XR events, XR brand. And I listened to a lot. I know I have a lot of time to talk, for myself, but I also listen. I always, whether the enemies, friends, foes, whatever, I try to listen to certain people who do make differences in the racing world and who are some decision makers. Now, what I'm about to play to you is an interaction between Steve Post, great guy, and Brian Carter, CEO World Racing Group, makes all the decisions, choices, and all that with what's going on. And obviously this high limit World of Outlaw thing has been happening, and the discussion of the high limit series and the World of Outlaw series and the whole racing scenario there with going into next year comes up right here. And let's just listen a little bit as to what the interaction is like. I'm going to provide a little commentary, and like I said, we got some voices from the other side of the aisle that we are going to analyze and talk about today as well. So let's go. Brian Carter, Wing Nation, 392 views. Hopefully I can help them out here today. Let's push play.
Brad Sweet and Kyle Larson have formed the High Limits series. Your view on that, your take on that, just kind of your sense on that is that is the hot button issue. That's what everyone wants to know about. What's Brian Carter?
What are we going to do?
We've asked everybody else, and everyone else has offered their opinion. What's Brian Carter's take on that?
Well, it's a challenge for us because what they're asking of us is a deviation from 45 years of our operation. The World of Outlaws was built on a group of drivers and a group of tracks that. And some exclusivity related to that the fans know. So I know that there's concern for me and for the racetracks in particular about how this balances in. Again, I talked a little bit about saturation in the marketplace and trying to figure out how it works. So we've got, again, record crowds, big events, destination pieces, and I don't know how you get some of those pieces on a Tuesday night. There's just a lot of that piece that we define success by something that's different than that. So,
well, I would say that the problem with him already jumping off how he has right here is he's saying we've created these events, these destinations, these places that people want to go and attend, and I don't know how they're going to do that on a Tuesday night. Well, I think they're planning to do that based on drivers, and destinations as far as like who in the world would not want to go or watch 410s at Eagle Raceway, return there, some of these other places. But anyways, let's continue.
I have a hard time changing my model much for something that I don't necessarily understand what success looks like. So, and for me, we've been blessed over the years. You're trying to bring resources into the sport. It's been a historical challenge. Historically, we've had fans bring in through ticket sales, sponsors coming in and supporting the pieces. And in the recent history, we actually now have a different revenue stream that was never available to us, which is the streaming and the TV rights. So it used to be a massive expense all those years. So now we have that revenue stream, and it's important that you're bringing all of those in and then balancing them out. We've done some work on that, and for every dollar that kind of comes in, it gets cycled 4 or 5 times before it goes out of the family. By the time we get it in, we pay out prize money, the teams pay out people, they buy parts, the parts people buy more parts, and then the parts guys, kids racing or the staff are racing, they come back and that money.
Listen to what he's talking about right here. I want to really nail this in, and we're going to pirouette to something else here. Watch this.
Comes back, and it's 5 times before it leaves. So every dollar that's coming in is important in figuring out how it balances in. And it's if you're not focused on all 3 of those pieces, some parts short. So if you're not having fans, or you're not having sponsors, or you're not having some part of the streaming coming back into the sport, it gets out of balance, and we're not really maximizing what's available. So how much I'm trying to maximize all of those pieces. How much am I supposed to sacrifice for the fans or for the teams, or for something I'm not certain I share the opinion of it being balanced? So it's a challenge for me. I understand in today's world there's a lot of racing, And there's a model that's been tried in the late model world. It's working to some extent, but there's a consolidation of wealth there inside the teams that I'm really concerned about. And then even some of the new Tuesday night shows are not concerned about sponsorship. They don't understand all the other pieces and really.
Okay. So he's basically, from this is my interpretation here. He's basically saying that these certain places are not concerned with sponsorship, and he's also saying that some of the revenue and everything that's coming in from some of these business models in the late model world are going to the race teams too much, is what it sounds like. He just referenced how the Tuesday night races don't really worry about sponsorship. That's where I want to pirouette over to a person he might be talking about in this scenario, and that might be the CEO of XR Events, Barry Braun.
So the minute that you take $1 from a sponsor, that's an obligation. And then you're also leveraged, meaning they're going to give you money because they're there to sell parts. If they're there to sell parts, they have an ulterior motive. Well, it's not really an ulterior motive. They're there to sell parts. So they want the best decisions possible for them to sell parts. What ends up happening is then you get into stamp parts, exclusive parts in the rule book, a number of other things. Said manufacturer makes their quote unquote sponsorship back. Who ends up paying for that? The racer.
Right.
We don't need the racer to be paying for sponsorship.
Wow. Listen to the difference already. One CEO to another. One person is concerned about the teams getting too much money and we need to acquire sponsorship. And the other guy's like, we don't need the racer to be paying for us. We need to be helping. Hold on. Let's get you've already noticed the difference in the beginning here. Listen.
Any longer. Certainly when a sponsor, and again, this is no disrespect to any manufacturer, any component manufacturer, anybody that's involved in the sport whatsoever. This is just laying it out there and what the reality is. If they put X amount of money into a sponsorship, they have expectations. They want to sell parts. And if they don't sell their parts, what's the point? It's not a donation, it's a sponsorship. Basically, kind of an investment into that sanctioning body or series or whatever. And because of that, that's just business, and there's nothing wrong with that. But let's be real about it. Who has the pull? Well, the manufacturers. The people making the tech book or writing the tech book or the tech manual, they don't have any, transparent decision-making ability because of the fact that these guys are going to lean on them and say, well, hey, wink, wink, we kind of want it this way for wink, wink, this reason. Can't do that. You're leveraged. I stand same on the tire deals. I think that there should be an open tire rule and multiple manufacturers should be involved. Yes, I understand that there's been wars of the past and American Racer and Goodyear and Hoosier and all that other stuff, but drivers need options. Drivers don't need to be put in exclusivities, which then, if you have only one tire, you pay that price, regardless of, you don't have any control. If they tell you that it's going to be X amount, you have to pay X amount. If there's no competition, there's going to be no ability for guys to, price things accordingly based on competition. And that's the problem we're running into in a lot of different ways. And it just doesn't allow us the ability to make honest decisions when it comes to these businesses. On top of that, you have to look at it from a business standpoint. If somebody's giving you, say, $10,000 to $20,000 for a sponsorship, and then they call you and say, hey, wink, wink, nod, nod, we want to do this. We want to do it this way. I've got $3 million invested into just purse money. Why would I let a $20,000 sponsor leverage anything of what's going on here? That's just terrible business. I understand being buddies.
Wow.
I understand that we want to do the right thing by the industry, and that's great. But let's do it with honesty and transparency and legitimacy, and quit bullshitting around about, oh, we're doing it for the racers, or, oh, we're doing it for safety. No, you're not. You're doing it for your pocketbook at the end of the day. We have to quit doing that. We have to do what's best by the industry and what's best by the racer and what's best by the fan. And again, if that vilifies us and we look like some asshole that's out here, trying to be a disruptor and shake things up, okay. But at the end of the day, at the heart of the matter, that's not what we're here to do. We're just trying to do the right thing.
And wow, I'm sorry I played that a little bit too long, but man, you talk about a difference in how people are looking at racers, looking at fans, looking at their business, and it takes a little bit of self-criticism to even get to the point where Barry's at, to say no to the money and yes to moral values. And like he said, disruptor, I guess if that's the wrong way to do it, that's not the typical way to do it. In response to kind of what Brian Carter was saying, that's the typical way. He's talking about this other way that makes more sense and cares more about the racers who are the stars of the show. It's so crazy how this is different. I do want to get back over here, though, and just play a little bit more on this Brian Carter interview, because there are some more topics that come up. He does have his own opinion. There is logistical stances from where he's coming from. But there's also, I just gave you an example of how other ways and other things can be looked at here. But let's continue on this.
I haven't seen much effort to bring fans to the grandstand. So you're leaving two parts of that out. I just want to make sure that what we're doing is right. And candidly, they've asked me to change my product. Racetracks buy exclusivity.
Sure.
I sell them full grandstands. We sell them full grandstands. And I need to make sure I can do that on a regular basis and make sure that part of it's sustainable going forward. And right now, I've been pushed to rush to a conclusion. I haven't come to a conclusion yet. I'm still working on it. So my goal, I have to make certain I have my sponsors all lined up, I have my calendar all lined up, and I have investments that I need to make sure that the sport is healthy and growing, and the fans get the entertainment value, and then we figure out how you allocate it from there. And that's not something that I'm going to rush through.
Yeah.
I think that's totally fair.
So it seems like Carter's point and stance is, he keeps hindering on exclusivity, and he's basically saying, I have these locked drivers for me, to where if you want to see these guys, you have to have Dirt Vision and come to a World of Outlaw event.
I'm curious, how transparent are you with the teams and the drivers as far as streaming numbers? Like, is that something that you guys are, because you obviously do pay, I don't know if you still call it tow money, but if you sign your contract with the World of Outlaws, you get rewards and you get, so is there a lot of transparency? How does that work within the teams in the business?
So now you just heard Barry Braun from the other competitors Tuesday model, building model, progressive model. You heard how he talked about transparency and being open and honest with the drivers and everything and all that, and how, a more progressive mind state of how to do things in the racing business world. We just got a good question there. And funny, I just brought up streaming. Let's see what happens here, because streaming is such a big entity, big part of this racing world here. So let's hear about it.
We've been sharing more and more the numbers of the people that have been watching and all the rest, but they don't get transparency necessarily to the revenues, because they don't understand the entire business model either, relative to, Apple takes their third off the top, the broadband companies take their piece, the satellite companies get their piece, and you staff it all. So I don't think it's...
You see, I already don't... Back to the attitude, the type, I already don't like what he just said there, because he basically just said, I don't show them all of everything because they're too stupid to understand. They don't know the whole business model. They don't know everything. But he just laid out, this guy gets that cut, that guy gets that cut. So what's wrong with telling these people, hey, here's how much is being made. Here's where this money's going. This is where that they're getting this cut's going there. This cut's going there. If somebody is ignorant to something, you tell them. That's called transparency. You help them understand, but there's still the transparency of the information allotted. Let's continue.
Quite as lucrative as they think it is, but we've been sharing that in a fixed, like going back to COVID. Historically, racing, we post prize money, you race for it, and you get paid. We post point funds, you race for it, and you get paid. And we've been this past year, we posted bonus money and tow money. So the packages, we've been enhancing that over the last 3 years, and the number has gone from about $800,000 to over $2 million just within the platinum teams over the last 2 or 3 years. So they're asking for more transparency, but they haven't really, the transparency as to what, I own my business. It's my business, and they have their businesses. I don't ask them for transparency into merchandise sales or any of the other pieces that they're doing based on building that off of our business. So it's a challenge. You want to be as transparent because you're.
Now that is a very good point. You know, the business model of the World of Outlaws, they go to a bunch of these tracks. I was just talking to a bunch of people in the merchandise industry in Pennsylvania and how, yeah, PA makes good money weekly, but when you go on that World of Outlaw tour and you set your World of Outlaw tour merchandise trailer at one track that only goes there once and you got all these fans there, they're going to buy it and they're making a bunch of money. And he's basically saying, I don't ask you for how much money you make on T-shirt sales, so you shouldn't ask me how much I make on streaming. There's kind of a mutual attraction there. Like the drivers are attracted to the World of Outlaws because of what merchandise money that they can make, and the World of Outlaws is attracted to the drivers because of how much money they can make off of them. It's coming from a very defensive standpoint, really, in this whole segment here.
We're business partners with everybody, but it's also, what we do is we post prize money, and even during the COVID year, we did not decrease the point fund. We paid the full point funds, we paid the full bonus money, paid the full point fund this year, despite finding out 16 out of 90. So we've always done that, and we'll continue to always do that. So for me, it's creating that level of certainty or sustainability that's much more valuable to the sport as a whole, and I think that's just balancing that back in. So.
As you work through this, is there negotiate? I mean, you've got a decision to make, and ultimately that's your decision. You're ultimately the one that has the key decision with platinum agreements and that sort of thing. But is there good dialogue? Is there good conversation between you and some of the team folks?
It's up and down.
Yeah, okay.
It's up and down. I don't fault them for wanting more. I don't fault them, and it is definitely a performance-based compensation package.
Yeah.
So you perform well, you're gonna have a great year. And when you go back to 2 or 3 years ago, again, I don't want to go back too deep in the history. They asked us, well, we don't want to race so much. We want to race less. We want to have big events and we want to travel a little bit less. Okay, so we did that. We want more prize money. Okay, we've done that too. We've increased the prize money. We've helped the racetracks at Knoxville, at Eldora, at Houston, at Jackson, and prize money across the events. And then, okay, well, we got cherry picked. That was a year, I think, that Kyler Courtney won some and Kyle Larson won. So now they're not getting the prize money. So I focused this year on enhancing the bonus money. So we added $7,000 or $8,000, actually increased it. So, from a $650,000 point fund to $1 million point fund and another $500,000 in bonus money, plus the tow money, plus the contingencies, plus the passes. So the package now for just the platinum teams is $2,066,000 actually for this year. In just the platinum teams, on top of the prize money.
First money.
So that's a compelling package, and I guess what they want more, and I don't fault them for that.
Sure.
But I want to make sure that we have a sustainable product and we're delivering the product to the fans. So my investments in the video boards and the fan engagement and all these pieces have to be balanced in along with the investment in the team. Yeah. So we had, when you look back at the teams, we had 5 teams over $500,000 in total package, and we had the Shark team almost $900,000 total. I mean, it's like between the two teams, these are serious dollars into the compensation of the teams, just the platinum team. So it's a balancing act, and it's hard to do. And as you're asking for time, the expectation that a Tuesday night somewhere doesn't have an effect on either weekend is a false assumption.
Yeah.
It's a false assumption because there's only so many dollars, there's only so many paychecks, there's only so many race fans. So my job is to figure out what is the long-term implications of this and what does it do to our business model. Yeah. And I understand wanting more, and I want more. I want to figure out how do we get more race fans, how do we get more sponsors, how do we get more people watching.
Yeah.
Then now I've got a package that I can put together and then distribute that. So it's a balancing act. And I'm not in a rush to figure this out because it has long-term consequences that we may not even know yet.
Yeah.
Well, and I think we're going to end it right there because he's kind of addressed all he needs to address. And it comes across, especially where he started dabbling into the numbers there and all these things. It comes across as he's kind of upset, that he hasn't built loyalty in the situation where people have come in over the years, said, we want this, we want that. He alluded to, they want to race less, bigger events. He did that. They want this, they want that. I give them this, I give them that. And basically it's boiling down to how now they want this. Now they want to do this. I've done everything they've asked for. Now they're going to stand on this grounds if I want to race these Tuesday night races. I want to race more. you know, and now it's contradictory to what you wanted to begin with and all this stuff, and I've given you this and I've given you that, and I've tried to protect you from being cherry-picked by the Tyler Courtneys and Marks, and it's like, really, you want me to do this now? And he's saying, like, if I open the door on this deal and let y'all go run some other races, I'm going to lose, first, my exclusivity to y'all at the track. I'm going to lose my exclusivity to y'all streaming rights as well, because it's going to be on Flow. And now that's going to be the new standard. So going forward, it'll take a big thing to occur for me to ever get that exclusivity back. And if I don't stand my ground on this, then I'm going to lose that exclusivity that I'm offering to tracks and promoters and to the fans as well. I have this lock on these people. So it's very interesting. It's a very interesting situation here. And obviously there's different business models going out there. Obviously the XR situation is based on a streaming model that pays, and they do get fans at some tracks, but they are not 100% reliable or reliant on fans to be at the track. They're perfectly fine with getting the streaming money in and allocating a large amount of that to the drivers. Some people see that as the wrong way to do it and want to focus on these other things and kind of allocate who gets what and who and kind of distribute as they see fit. So it's a very interesting way to look at all these things. You know, we are in America. We like to see freedom. We like to see people to be able to do what they want. The late model world obviously is one of those great examples. But there is some hindrance to the structure of the sprint car racing industry not being under one banner. Like I said in one of my recent videos, it's hard to promote a form of motorsports without it being under one banner to masses, to up the level of this sport. It's hard to produce this to a national audience outside of the dirt racing world without it being one thing that we could say, here, go watch this, and this is the top form, this is where you go see everybody, this is where the stars are located. I am hearing that the Lucas Oil Late Model Series is merging with Flow. And here are some of the things that I am hearing that is going to cause this to happen. I'm hearing that Lucas Oil Late Model Dirt Series is going out of business. That's the word. MAV TV is shut down. The entire Indianapolis office and staff let go, including Bob Dillner. California office will be shut down in November. Lucas Oil has dropped about 350 of 420 advertising and sponsorship accounts. You know, we just talked about the exclusivity of the sprint car industry. And the World of Outlaws Sprint Car Series is trying to keep this exclusivity, and the Lucas Oil and the late model world don't have it. Jonathan Davenport, Chris Madden, the stars of the sport, they're outlaws. They're running around money racing. They don't have it. They don't have that structure over there. And it seems like when you don't have that kind of structure, you lose series or mergers occur. With streaming industries, where the streaming industry is so large, one of the things that World Racing Group is leaning on, I believe, that's not being come out, is how big this streaming industry actually is. When you got XRs and Flows putting on these big money races, you heard $3 million in purses for XR. Obviously a little less, but they ain't racing 90 times a year than the World of Outlaws Sprint Car Series. But obviously Lucas Oil and all these other guys, they're putting up big money in having a series and having all these things. You know, and if they don't have that exclusivity, if they don't have those must-see talents, those must-see people in their series racing week in and week out, then they don't have one. They don't have a series. They can't stay alive. They have to shut offices down. They have to merge with someone else to survive. You know, so this is a situation where we can look at the Lucas Oil or look at the Lucas Oil Late Model Dirt Series potential situation here and say this is what the World of Outlaws Sprint Car Series don't want to. This is what World Racing Group don't want to become. Now, I do think that Brian Carter and them, they need to work very, very hard on trying to keep that exclusivity and keep that exclusivity with their drivers being happy so that they don't lose them. It only takes a few of those guys to turn their back on the World of Outlaws Sprint Car Series, and they are Lucas Oil. Now, the late model world, obviously, these guys have went rogue because of the money. And some of these people in the sprint car world are wanting to go rogue because of the money as well. But luckily for the World of Outlaws, you do have a brand. You have a brand that the drivers, crew, and teams and people aspire to be. Lucas Oil has that, yes. What the World of Outlaws had, the late model series, the late model world is just so split up. There isn't that one iconic brand that everybody wants to race under. And I think this is what Brian Carter is afraid of, is becoming the Lucas Oil Late Model Dirt Series, where you have a star, you have 2 stars, but the social dynamics that could change this whole thing. If you ain't got the stars, if you ain't got the man, then you ain't got the fans, you ain't got the people, you ain't got the sponsorships, you ain't got the support. So this is a very interesting situation all across the board. But thanks for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. Interesting talks here. Share this thing around. Let's get it out there. We will catch you next time.
This is how we ride. This is how we do. Ride mud, slide